Hey guys, it's Gwen. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing. And if you like my video, please give me a thumbs up and hit that notification bell so that you are notified when I upload a new video. Let's get on with another fall DIY video. So for the first DIY, I'm taking one of these tobacco baskets. This was already in my stash, and it originally came from, I want to say, Target when they sold it in their dollar spot. So I'm just reusing something I already owned and taking it from this sort of natural colored wood tone to a whitewash. So essentially I'm using some white chalk paint, but I watered it down significantly just to create sort of a wash or a haze, if you will, onto this tobacco basket. I did have to add more concentrated paint in different areas where I felt the brown color of this wood tone sort of came through just a little more than I wanted it to. So you'll sort of just play around with the colors, with the paint, as well as thinning it out or adding more if need be, until you get the consistency or the color that you're looking for. So as I mentioned, I wanted more of a whitewash effect with a little of the orangey tones showing through. And I didn't want full coverage, so that's basically what I did here. For the next step, I took this orangey ribbon. It's a wired ribbon. I also took some buffalo check ribbon and burlap ribbon. The burlap ribbon has like a pearl trim on it. You can use plain burlap ribbon. I wanted to try using this. However, it was a little challenging since the burlap trim sort of made bending the ribbon and forming it in the different directions a little bit more challenging because the pearl trim is stiff. So next time I'd probably just opt to use plain wired burlap. But anyways, at the end it does come out looking nice. So what I'm doing is just cutting out strips. So depending on how big you want your messy bow to look, that's the size of or the length that you'll want to cut of each of the ribbons. So you'll cut as much or as little as you need to create the fullness that you need for your own project. This is a fairly small tobacco basket. So here I was cutting quite a bit of strips, but didn't end up using all of it. So essentially what I'm doing is just creating an X pattern, just overlaying each one on top of the other, alternating the colors of the ribbons and creating like an X fashion. And once you stack them up and make this sort of X pattern, you'll want to take some zip ties to cinch it down the middle and just make it look tighter right up in the middle. And that way you have a nice messy X bow, if you will. And then you can fluff out all of the tails as need be. And then I'm also going to dovetail all the edges just for that finished look, but you can also choose to just leave them straight. So you can customize this however you want to make your own DIY. So I'm taking one of these Dollar Tree signs. It's cute as is, but we can take it up a notch just by adding it to this tobacco basket and some ribbons and florals. This is a good way to amp up a simple or plain Dollar Tree decor that they sell. They sell a lot of really cute farmhouse type decor pieces, freestanding signs and shelf sitters and things like that. But on its own, it looks fine. But if you want to take it up a notch, you can do something like this with your signs. So here I am just fluffing out the bow, as I mentioned, and then I'm trying to figure out the placement. I end up hot gluing the sign down the middle, and originally I was going to go all out and just use a piece of string to adhere or attach this to the tobacco basket to make it more secure. I didn't think that using hot glue on its own and actually gluing it directly onto the tobacco basket would be sufficient, but eventually I found out that it was. And since the decor piece is fairly light. It was good enough to hot glue directly onto this basket. Another idea that you can do to this ribbon, if you want to add a little more embellishment, is to add something right in the center of the bow. Usually I like to do that just to finish it off or to cover like whatever is tying all the layers of bows together. But for this one, I did not do that. I can always go back and add something if I wanted to. You can add something that's more like fallish, like if you want to add a pine cone, or if you want to make this look more cutesy or country, add a button. You can even add some sprigs of greenery to the center of the bow. But again, I decided to just keep them as is. And here I'm just adding hot glue to the different parts of the ribbon where it laid across the sign and also on the tobacco basket, just for more adhesion. And I did that with the sign because I didn't want the ribbons to cover the wording. So next I'm taking this orange flower from the Dollar Tree, and I did cut them apart to separate all the stems from that one bouquet. So after you have all the pieces separated, what I did was sort of stagger the pieces and use some floral tape to attach them to each other. And what I'm basically doing is just connecting them all, but in a staggered fashion to where they create more of a line, if you will, since this will be used on one side of the sign, and you will see that shortly. This floral tape is very sticky, so you just want to make sure that you wrap it pretty tightly around the stems that you are trying to attach. You can even press into it to activate that stickiness or the adhesive on it, and that should work just fine. And here, since it is wired, I can just bend and twist this in the direction that I want them to face. And again, this is what I will be using to sort of frame out the right side of this decor piece. So once I was done with that step, I took some additional ribbon from the Dollar Tree. This is like the jute ribbon with that little extra added zigzag stitching going through it. I was going to wrap the stem with this ribbon to cover the floral tape, but I decided that that wasn't necessary. So instead, I used that to attach this floral, we'll call it a floral bouquet, attach that to the tobacco basket. And then I use an additional piece to just drape it across the stem going vertically, just to cover the stems without actually having to twist it around the entire piece. So this is what I'm doing right here. I glued that piece of ribbon over the stems and then hot glued the ribbon over the tobacco basket. The last thing I did was took some of these fall tags or labels that came from Hobby Lobby, which I got last fall on clearance, and I decided to use the one that was in the faux leather style, and it has the word blessed on it. They came with different wordings, and I decided to go with this one right here, which is sort of not visible, but there you go. Here it is. It says blessed. I just attached that to the bottom part using a piece of string and knotting it to the back of the tobacco basket. And this is how this first DIY came out. I think it's super cute. Let me know what you think in the comments. Moving right along to DIY number 2, I am using one of these galvanized metal chargers. I've had this one in my stash as well for quite some time. This came from the 99-cent store. I think Dollar Tree sometimes carries things like this. I know they usually carry like the faux wood grain ones and other different styles like the buffalo check. Not quite sure if I've ever seen this particular style, but you can choose whatever type of charger you want to use for this DIY, but I had this already, so I'm going to go ahead and use it for this, what's going to be a sign. So I took this Summer Crush color, and it's by DIY, and just gave that center part a good couple coats, just making sure to cover up the metal or that silver color. You want to make sure that you also take the paint up to the sides just for a finished look. The next thing I did was I took some of these window decals from Dollar Tree, and this is something that I got from last fall. Again, this is something that they carry yearly, so I'm sure you can find something similar this year. I'm not sure if they have this one in particular, but I decided to go with this phrase, home is where you smell pumpkin spice. I thought that was super cute saying and perfect for me since I love pumpkins and pumpkin spice. And I knew I needed to paint the background that Summer Crush color because I did test it out just putting it on directly to the galvanized metal, and it wouldn't have stood out as much as it does with the orange background. So you can choose white color, you can choose like ivory, you know, any like sort of a brighter undercolor or layer before you put these window clings, because it will make it pop a little bit more. So then I decided to use some of the leaves that was part of this vinyl, not vinyl, but the window clings, and just spread them out throughout the sides of the charger. And originally I was going to attach that ribbon to the very top, which is why I left that part free, you know, with no window clings. But In the end, you'll see that I decided not to put it that high up, and I went with a different option. I decided to take two styles of ribbon. This is a buffalo check and also a burlap ribbon. Both are wired, and I just layered them on top of each other and made a simple bow and used some string to tie it together. And then you can fluff out the ribbons so that you can see. Once I was done making that ribbon, I decided I needed to add some florals to one side of this decor. So as you can see, I decided that I was going to add that ribbon to the floral display on the right side rather than adding it to the top. I took some of these florals and leaves from the Dollar Tree and just took them apart off of the picks. I really love that orange, light orange ombre sort of colored leaves with the pumpkins, and I will be utilizing those pumpkins as well. For this part, you'll want to just take your pieces of leaves and stems and just layer them and stagger them as needed. Here I wanted to have a couple leaves, one on top and one at the bottom of the ribbon, and just sort of keep going with that direction of the charger plate. Once I had the leaves hot glued into place, I took two of the mini pumpkins that came from the same stem and just added a couple of those over the leaves where I felt it needed a little bit more volume and a little bit more decorative touch. I also took these white fuzzy looking plants or flowers. They sort of remind me of cattails, but I'm not sure if that's exactly what it is. But they feel like flocked, and rather than keeping them as one piece, I just cut them in half and glued them one to the bottom of the ribbon and one on top, and just sort of laid it sideways on that one side, and I think I like that look, as opposed to if I would have kept it connected and on its stem. So since I didn't use a ribbon on the top middle part of the charger, I decided to take one more of those leaves from the window clings and just use a glue stick to glue that into place. And that was it for the second DIY. I think it came out super cute. What do you think? I think it's perfect for fall. Moving on to DIY number 3, I am taking a set of these white dry erase tags. It comes together on a string. I'm also using more of the window clings. This time I'm taking a different design as well as some other designs from a different pack. You'll see here which ones I end up using. Here I was trying to decide again on how I wanted my tags to lay. So it already comes attached with this piece of jute twine, but I did unravel that or untie it, and I decided to add a little more decorative touch by using some of the wood beads and stringing that onto the jute twine. And you can use as much or as little as you want. You can even use the bigger size beads if you wanted yours to be more pronounced, but I decided to use the smaller version. And you can also stain or paint these if you prefer. I kept them the natural color that they were. And as an advice or a tip, in order to get those beads easily strung onto the piece of jute, I did have to use some hot glue to the tips of the jute twine and just rub them into the jute to create a more finer edge so that I can string them more easily. It was a little bit of a struggle. And once the beads were strung, I just double knotted the string to ensure that the beads did not roll out. The next step was to decide on how I wanted this set of tags to lay. I wanted them to be in a more permanent position, if you will, so I wanted to hot glue them together so they would not be mobile. So this is the part where you decide on which of the two tags you want to be on top, whether it be the left or the right ones. And depending on the design that you're using or the size of the designs, that's going to dictate how you want your tags to lay or in which direction you want them to lay. So I decided to go with this fashion here, and I'm taking this bigger sized window cling with the wording on it and just using that on the right side since it has more surface space. And on the left, I'm just embellishing it with some small random pieces. I took a pumpkin, and then I also found a cute pumpkin latte cup and just added that over the top of the pumpkin. Then I placed a few leaves here and there, and I also added a ribbon using this cute little pumpkin ribbon. I believe this came from the Dollar Tree. So just make a simple shoestring bow and just knot it up with some jute twine and hot glue that down into place. This again is a very easy, simple, quick project or DIY to make as an addition to a coffee bar or a dessert bar, even just to add as an accent over a wreath or in your kitchen somewhere. I think it would be a super cute touch. You can make this into a hanging decor piece or even use that beaded hanger as a way to hang this decor piece. Otherwise, you can use it as a leaner. So this is how that came out. I think it was super adorable, very simple and quick to make, and I hope you guys like that idea. Last but not least, I am moving on to the DIY number 4 of this video. I am using another charger plate. This one is the buffalo check design from Dollar Tree. And again, I've had this for several years in my stash. I'm also using one of Dollar Tree's calendars for 2024. This one is in the Farmhouse designs, and here I'm just showing you a quick glance at all the different cute designs they have out for the calendar. And eventually I decided on this cute design, which is the Milk and Creamery Company design with a cow in the middle. I think it's super cute with that distressed wood plank background. Perfect for a farmhouse decor. This isn't necessarily a fall decor, but you can use it for fall. It's a perfect everyday type decor. You don't have to put this one out once fall is done. It's just perfect to hang in your kitchen as an everyday accent, in my opinion. But I think the buffalo check design of the plate as well as the ribbon lends well to the fall, since those are the designs or the styles that we tend to use during that time of year, even Christmas. But I'm just going to call this one a neutral farmhouse decor. So here I'm just cutting out the wording, making sure to cut out each individual words and sort of rounding out the edges just for more added interest. I'm also cutting out the cow in the center. That will be the focal point of this DIY. Now, if you wanted to try to keep all the words attached as one piece, you can try and do that, but I thought that it might be a little more challenging to glue or decoupage that onto this plate because of the size of the plate in comparison to the size of that design. So I thought by separating the wording and just adjusting them according to how I wanted the spacing to look and the size of the charger, it would give me a little bit more freedom to make those adjustments as needed. So a lot of people do call this type of cutting fussy cutting because you are cutting around a more detailed fashion. I guess that's what it means. And again, I'm trying to go for more of that rounded edge look. I think it looks a little bit more interesting than keeping it straight. So I wanted to keep the wording in the same sequence or fashion. The only difference is they are disconnected. And that was the only feasible way for me to get this to, to attach to the rim of the charger. Here I'm just taking some of the rope, just sort of testing it out to see if I wanted to use that. But let's move on to the adhering part. I'm using some glue stick. I didn't use Mod Podge or anything. I just used the glue stick. It's super easy. And you do have a little leeway because if you don't get it centered on or placed on correctly, you can peel it back and just glue it back down again. I did the same with all the wording, just using that glue stick. Now, if you don't have glue stick, you can certainly use Mod Podge, but I like the glue stick a lot better because Mod Podge tends to have bubbles and wrinkles. So I'm just using my hands to make sure that it has good adhesion and making sure everything is flattened out. The next thing I did was took this nautical rope, and I knew this needed some sort of accent trim. That center part was looking a little too drab and plain for my taste. And since there was some gap in between the design and the edge of that charger, I knew I needed to fill that space. So what better to use than some nautical rope? It fills in the space quite nicely, so I decided to go around 3 times just for that fuller finished look. I believe in the end you will see that I did decide to add an extra layer of rope because I thought it was lacking something. It still exposed that little dip in the plate in the edge, and I didn't like how that looked. So here I sort of laid it out just to get a dry fit to see if that is exactly what I wanted to do. In the meantime, I decided to make a simple bow using this buffalo check ribbon and using some jute twine to cinch it down the middle. This will be the topper to this piece. I wanted to make sure that I made the bow small enough so that it wouldn't cover up the design of the cow or the wording. I did also use one of those Dollar Tree jute flowers that you see that I've glued down to the bottom. I felt it needed something down there as well, and that added a nice feminine floral touch without going too frilly. It was coordinating well with the nautical rope, since it was made of like that same jute style or twine texture. So once I hot glued my ribbon into place, I decided to add some greenery, and I used some of these sprigs of ferns and other random scraps of florals and greenery in my stash, just adding a little more texture and added element to it. And I think it came out super cute. Here is a final look at all the DIYs for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching and got some great ideas. This goes to show you that you can take any item and make it your own just by adding some cute touches to it using Dollar Tree supplies, things that you already have in your stash, just reinventing them into something different that is useful and functional and lends well to the season. Let me know what you think in the comments down below of all the DIYs that I've showed you. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button. Thanks for watching.